Chapter 9. A Song of His People. Shh. You held an urgent finger to your lips as you opened the hotel door. Melody responded with a nod in understanding and slipped into the room. She couldn't help but smile upon seeing the blonde fast asleep atop the bed covers, breathing deeply. "It's that special tea I told you about," you whispered to her. "Puts him right to sleep every time." Her delighted smile widened. "If I hadn't figured out this trick, he'd probably be up all night talking about the you-know-who." You glanced over to Kurapika's sleeping form. The word spider would probably instinctively wake his senses, like a resting dog hearing the word walk from its master. Kurapika was so high-strung by nature that you'd taken to using eucalyptus oil on your skin before bed, just to aid in his relaxation a bit. Honestly, what else were you going to spend your stupid amount of money on? Other than the item in Melody's hands, that is. She offered it up the instant she saw your eyes land upon it. "Thank you. I'm impressed you found it so fast." "It wasn't all that difficult to come by. You really didn't need my expertise." "I appreciate it nonetheless. I can wire the money into your account immediately," you said, retrieving your phone from your pocket. "No need. Consider it a gift." "You're the greatest, Melody." Your dear roommate must have been thoroughly drained from the last mission. Not only had he pulled a double shift for Melody's sake, but the two of you had plans to tail Salvatore that very same night. Once the yellow harvest moon rose into the sky, you found yourselves at a weapons dealer banquet, where Kurapika, looking charming in his little tailcoat, posed as a waiter serving drinks. That way he was able to directly meet more than a fair share of people to use his dowsing chain on. A brilliant idea, if you do say so yourself. Your guise, on the other hand, was that of an affluent aristocrat. That dress neon about you certainly helped you look the part, where you spent the evening subtly summoning said stranger over to the suspicious gentleman to offer them a beverage. During this process, he discovered your original assessment to be correct. Salvatore was not the one overlooking the crime ring. As most gang leaders do, he had associates to do the dirty work for him. Another set of rumors circled on the air that night, that of Salvatore's number 2 affiliate. Fortunately, it was easier than expected to get his name. Apparently there was some discord among the local dons about whether or not he was suited to be Gambino's prune successor. Due to his hot temper and ruthless disposition, a handful of partygoers weren't shy about vocalizing their distaste for the aforementioned malefactor. The man himself, Vito Castellano, wasn't present at the event. Of course you wouldn't be that lucky. So you and Kurapika settled on the next best thing. You kept tabs on 2 specific men who had stories to tell about him. The first seemed to be blowing smoke with his tales of Vito, reminiscent of the way a group of preteens might delineate their past encounters with the boogeyman. The second, however, struck you as a much more viable lead. You seductively curled your finger towards Kurapika across the bustling golden room, beckoning him. Another drink to keep this man talking. The following 2 days were somewhat less eventful, but you had to admit you enjoyed them quite a lot. Using his tracking then, Kurapika had found you both an abandoned building across the street from this target's favorite meeting spot, an ideal vantage point for a stakeout. You tingled with excitement at the proposition initially, but it wasn't long before the novelty lost its luster. You both had forgotten that mobsters still lived ordinary lives most of the time, and boredom set in fast. In the spare hours where the man did mundane things like pick up groceries, you and Kurapika found random ways to pass the hours. In this time you had the chance to engage in uncritical conversation for a change. Gentle small talk. The second day he took so long to return that you and the blonde trained your 10 together. It was an interesting sensation, activating your nen next to his, like the phantasmal equivalent of touching hands. The light rush of his aura was warm but lethal, erratic in its spikes and wavelength patterns, but still somehow controlled. When you weren't training, the 2 of you mostly took to chatting. Kurapika praised you much too generously on how well you played your part at the banquet, which caught you off guard and caused you to blush. Then afterwards you even managed to make him chuckle, when you used your bite manipulation to make some poor random schmuck deliver you coffee and donuts. And it was there on that random slab of cold, uncomfortable concrete that you realized you were having fun. When had been the last time you just casually shot the breeze with Kurapika? Things certainly had changed. When had the sweet, doe-eyed teen you met in the hunter exam traded his Bakken for a switchblade and a 9mm? Strictly for intimidation, he would always say when he pocketed them. But you found yourself doubting that claim more and more nowadays. At last, on the eve of the second night, the two of you overheard an important little tidbit of information. A deal was about to be made, and your friendly neighborhood Vito was destined to be the star of the show. The nightclub Salvatore owned is where he would be, orchestrating a trade of sorts. Kurapika connected the mental dots immediately. Though that district may have been known for a different kind of trafficking, through Castellano it had lately become a harbor for bartering counterfeit items. This rang similar to another past crime tied to the Troupe, where a high-end merchant had his establishment broken into one night, only to note the next morning that not a single thing had actually been stolen. However, months later his fortune was lost in lawsuits, because, upon professional appraisal, every single item he had sold since then was merely a convincing identical replica. A fake. In only about a week's time, Kurapika's past fussiness to keep you home and safe seemed to be a laughable memory. Now you were always by his side. A key trap card to help keep things running smoothly. Before he left this evening, he even told you the ability of his final chain, a topic you'd been wondering about since this began, a sign of his absolute trust in you. In 3 days' time, that nightclub is where you'd make your next move together. But not tonight. Tonight was a special kind of mission. Kurapika had left a while ago in an attempt to score the hideout where the counterfeits were made. The Troupe member with that ability, he knew they were near. He could feel it. Tonight, he'd follow them and break into that facility. To be continued. Also, sorry guys, I was supposed to have this up last week, but we lost power because of the big tornado in Kentucky, so thank you for waiting and thank you for watching. Bye!